So this is gonna be a little bit of a ranty, just an opinion blog, live stream thing. I mean, it's based on my experience living in Southern California in the Inland Empire, 60 miles inland from the ocean, okay? So, you would think, because I only live 60 miles inland from the ocean, I'd go to the ocean more. I just happen to not go that frequently, but it's possible. I mean, I thought about it. I'm like, why don't I just get on the beach train one of these days and go to the ocean? I really should. It would be a lot of fun. Although, I don't really like LA beaches, honestly. Compared to Hawaii or down in La Jolla, LA beaches are just not that pleasant, in my opinion. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to say LA is not my grape jelly jam, but I don't know. Every time you go down to LA, this is just my opinion of Los Angeles, I'm not a big city gal, okay? I live in the Inland Empire, which is more populated than some parts of the United States. But up until a decade ago, we were more open spaces, orange fields. We were just more about the suburban, quieter life. We still have trees in our area. It was just more open spaces. And there's just certain things about LA that I really don't vibe, that are not my grape jelly jam. And I'm not trying to rag on LA, but you see a lot of what you see on YouTube. Okay, and I know people, this is where they talk about the fakery on social media, but it happens in real life too. So it's kind of this LA mentality, and I'm not talking about people that, are low income in LA. I'm talking about a certain affluent lifestyle in LA, and there's nothing wrong with being affluent. That's great. But I think people get this impression that that's what all of California is like. There's affluent people in my area too, but it's just this idea that, I live in LA and I drink celery juice, which that sounds disgusting, but it's kind of true. That is something that started popping up a lot a couple of years ago or a year ago. I would see all these celery juice or just other things, and then just misnomers that LA has the best vegan food, which isn't even true, because Loma Linda's in the Inland Empire and they do vegan food better than LA, because guess what? They've been vegans longer than people in LA, because Seventh Day Adventists, even though yes, they're a religious organization, they are vegan. So yeah, I mean, I just happen to be pro Inland Empire. I like the Inland Empire. I like our smaller communities up here. I'm just not a fan of the big city. And if you like the big city, if you like the LA life and the more, nightlife, that's all cool. But there were just certain things that I saw during the pandemic too, which is really interesting, because a few years ago, housing was very affordable up here, okay? Even renting was very affordable, especially in the high desert. But you do have this thing, and it's happened in LA, definitely, but as people creeped, eastward, there's the gentrification of cities, where people come in and they buy up these communities and the rent goes up, the whole flipping houses thing. And it's starting to happen here too. And I'm not, some of that is because of overregulation in California, but a lot of it has just to do with the LA vibe and just certain things about that lifestyle. And it's funny too, because during the pandemic, a lot of people in LA would always say, before the pandemic, they'd say, the Inland Empire is boring. There's nothing to do up there. There's no nightlife. There's no culture and blah, 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 blah. Although we have all the beautiful scenic things. They have the ocean, but we have the deserts and the mountains. So yeah. But anyway, it's kind of that started to change a little bit before the pandemic, of course. But during the pandemic, people started buying houses up here because they're oh my gosh, houses are cheaper up in the Inland Empire. Not that they're cheap. Really, houses are not cheap in California. No, not at all, but cheaper than LA. You could buy, a 3-bedroom house for $500,000 as opposed to in LA where it's $1 million. So it's a little bit cheaper. But our housing prices are going up because a lot of people from LA started buying houses because they needed their own rooms to zoom in, okay? that was a thing. Like, there were people in LA, they were like, I need my own office space. It's not like normal families, like, I don't know, in other big cities like London or New York, where they had kids in the background doing homework when they had to Zoom. Like, it's just this out of touch with reality. Like, there's just certain things about LA. LA is fun to visit occasionally, but there are things about it that are a little pretentious that kind of rub people the wrong way. And it's funny because people would always get mad at New Yorkers, but it's like there's this certain thing about LA that they can't really acknowledge about themselves, you know, that they aren't willing to acknowledge that, you know, maybe they're elitist sometimes. And I'm sorry, I don't really care. Like, it has nothing to do with being affluent. That's not, because there's people that are in the Inland Empire that are affluent. It's just, it would be this vibe, and it might not be everybody in LA. So maybe if in a comment on somebody's video I kind of jest that people in LA drink celery juice, it's because it's kind of true, because there's always some new trending thing and people think, ooh, celery juice. It's just funny that that's trending again, because that's something that was around back in the 1930s, like 40s, 50s with Jack LaLanne juicing set. But all of a sudden things come full circle. But juicing celery is disgusting, and it's a waste of vegetables. Like, just cut some celery and put on a salad, okay? And you know how pretentious that is? Like, some people, I'm sorry, they can't afford to buy enough celery to juice that to make celery juice. So it is a little out of touch with reality. If you think, like, I don't know, like, if I'm just kind of making a joke that, yeah, people in LA do that, well, they kind of do. And the people that are posting that on social media, they don't get it. Like, they don't get, most people can't afford those things. And I think it's just good to point out and to show other, like, modalities. Like, it's good to show that, you know, not everybody drives an expensive car. Like, it's good to do, like, some videos just showing people can walk, because I think, yeah, I just want to show more diversity, like, in opinions about what California is. California can be whatever you want it to be, and I don't really care at the end of the day if there's that subset of people that want to live in LA, want to pay buku bucks to live there and juice celery. That's fine. But if somebody gets offended that I said a lot of people in LA do that, it's just because it's kind of the vibe. I'm not saying everybody does. It's kind of in jest, because people in LA would always make fun of us in the Inland Empire, but it's like LA can't take a joke. I'm like, you guys, are you that insecure? Like, you can dish it, but you can't take it. And I do think, like, just it's some sincere points, is that there is a certain kind of elitism among some people in LA that you do not find among people in NYC, okay? That's just the truth. Or people in London, like other big cities, like, you don't always have all that space, but people in LA, like, they can have a big house, okay? But they found out that people in the Inland Empire, and we're boring, by the way, because we don't have the nightlife, but I guess that didn't matter after COVID, that you could come up here and buy a house to have your own office to Zoom in. It's just some things that are just a little out of touch with most people's reality, and that's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong if you can afford to do that. Good for you. Great. But just be cognizant that that's not most people's reality. So sometimes, like, when you see a video, okay, this is where I do think, like, when people are looking at social media, like, maybe this makes some people feel bad about themselves, but it really shouldn't. I'll tell you why. Because I just find humor in things like that, rather than letting somebody's, like, first off, like, I don't ever feel jealous of people having more money than me. That's fine, you know, because you can do your own thing, like. And actually, there are studies that show that after a certain amount of money, that it doesn't buy happiness. And there's a lot of people that are very affluent, and they make a lot of money, and they're never going to be super happy, okay? So it's not that there's anything wrong with money. It just doesn't guarantee happiness, okay? So rather than like just let something on social media that's a little absurd like make you feel bad, just kind of realize how absurd some things are. But at the end of the day, I think sometimes, people in LA could maybe, like, I don't know, and I'm not talking about everybody, but I'm talking about those certain accounts with people that have like all the money in the world and they live in a minimalist, and even, okay, this goes farther, like even minimalism, like most of the minimalist like vloggers in LA, like they have minimalism with really expensive things and backgrounds, and that's going to be harder to do. Not that I'm even a minimalist, but that's going to be harder for people in other areas to do. Like, just be cognizant of what is reality, and don't feel jealous just because people have a different reality. That's just their life. Maybe they think that's exciting. I don't know. Like, rather than I just think it's interesting. Like, I just always like to observe people, and I love, because I studied history. I didn't study sociology, but if you study sociology, there's a sociology element just to see how people live, and sometimes it's just interesting to see what's trending and what changes, and but there is more to California than LA. LA is just a microcosm, and what you see on social media or in certain parts of LA is not all of life in LA for sure, but you still don't hear about other parts of California because hello, Hollywood. And I kind of think, in my opinion, I feel like Hollywood movies are becoming more obsolete. Like Korean dramas are giving them a run for their money. They're more creative. So I don't know, like I feel like Hollywood's been there and done that, and I feel like there's other places that are kind of more interesting. I still would love to see a movie set in the Inland Empire. There's only been a couple, really, but like in more recent times, I think that would be cool. Like, because every time you have a movie that takes place in California, it's often filmed in LA. I mean, sometimes they would have vacation scenes like up in Lake Arrowhead, but it would be really cool to have like a movie set in the Inland Empire that portrays other ways of life. That's all I'm saying. Because life in California is more than LA. So this is just my opinion. You don't have to like it, but thanks for watching.